Admiral Hyunwoo Kim stood in his private office aboard the massive warship Terra's Vengeance. The ship floated in space near Earth's moon, silent and deadly. 5 years had passed since the war ended. 5 years since humanity thought they had won against the lizard-like Korath Empire. 5 years since they believed their alien friends, the Valerians, had saved them. Now Hyunwoo stared at papers that changed everything. The documents lay spread across his metal desk. Each page told a story that made his stomach turn. Captain Da-eun Park stood beside him, her face pale. She had brought these papers to him an hour ago. Since then, neither of them had spoken much. "Tell me again how we got these," Hyunwoo said. His voice was quiet, but anger burned underneath. Da-eun touched her tablet. "Our spy satellites picked up a Valerian communication 3 days ago. It was coded, but Tae-hyun Lee broke it." She paused. "Sir, what we found. It's worse than we thought." The door opened. Tae-hyun Lee walked in, followed by Commander Ji-hai Song. Both looked tired. Tae-hyun carried a datapad filled with more decoded messages. Ji-hai had files tucked under her arm. "Admiral," Tae-hyun said, "I've decoded 47 more messages. They all say the same thing." He set down his pad. "The Valerians planned everything." Hyunwoo picked up one of the papers. It was a Valerian military report dated from 6 years ago, before the war even started. The report talked about something called Project Culling. It described humans as promising subjects and the Korath as suitable opponents for conditioning. "Conditioning," Hyunwoo read aloud. "They were conditioning us?" Ji-hai opened her files. "Sir, I've been looking into Valerian history. This isn't the first time." She pulled out a chart. "In the last 1,000 years, they've done this to at least 12 other species. They make 2 races fight each other, then show up as peacekeepers when both sides are weak." Da-eun pointed to another document. "Look at this one, sir. It's a supply list from during the war." She read from it. Quote, "Deliver pulse rifles to human forces on Tuesday. Deliver shield generators to Korath forces on Wednesday. Ensure equal capability maintenance for optimal culling efficiency." The room went quiet. Hyunwoo felt his hands shake. During the war, he had wondered why the Valerians always seemed to have exactly what both sides needed. Now he knew. They had been feeding weapons to both humans and Korath. They wanted the war to go on as long as possible. "How many died?" Hyunwoo asked. 2,300,000,000 humans, Da-eun said. "The Korath lost about the same number." Tae-hyun pulled up another message on his pad. "This one talks about the harvest. After the war ended, they took our strongest people to work in their mines and factories. They told us it was a cultural exchange program." Ji-hai nodded. "My teams investigated those relief camps the Valerians set up after the war. We thought they were helping war refugees. Instead, they were sorting people. Strong ones went off-world as slaves. Weak ones stayed behind to rebuild under Valerian control." Hyunwoo walked to the window. Outside, he could see Earth. Blue and green and beautiful, but scarred. Whole cities had been destroyed in the war. Millions of people still lived in temporary shelters, all because the Valerians wanted to weaken humanity. "They thought they were farming us," he said quietly. "Sir?" Da-eun asked. Hyunwoo turned around. His eyes were hard now. "They thought they could plant a war, let it grow, then harvest the survivors. They thought we were crops." He walked back to his desk and pressed a button. "Get me the senior staff. All department heads. Emergency meeting in conference room Alpha." "What are you going to tell them?" Ji-hai asked. "The truth." Hyunwoo picked up the documents. "And then we're going to show the Valerians what happens when you try to farm humans." 30 minutes later, the conference room was full. Admirals, generals, scientists, and intelligence officers sat around a long table. Hyunwoo stood at the front with a large screen behind him. "What I'm about to show you will change everything," he began. "Everything we believed about the war was a lie." He activated the screen. Valerian documents appeared, translated into human language. The room stayed silent as people read. Then someone gasped. Then someone cursed. Soon, angry voices filled the room. "Quiet!" Hyunwoo shouted. The room went silent. "Yes, we were betrayed. Yes, they used us. But that's not the important part." General Wu Jin Kong stood up. Admiral, with respect. How is that not important? They killed billions of our people. Because, Hyun-woo said, they made a mistake. They thought the war would break us. Instead, it made us stronger. He changed the screen to show human military development during the war. Look at what we built while we were fighting. New weapons, new ships, new tactics. We went from having simple rockets to building faster-than-light engines in just 5 years. Dr. So-Young-han, the chief scientist, nodded slowly. The war forced us to innovate faster than any species in galactic history. Exactly, Hyun-woo said. The Valerians have been doing this for 1,000 years. They always win because they fight species that have been weakened by war. But they've never fought a species that was made stronger by war. Captain Dong-wook Nam, the chief engineer, leaned forward. Admiral, what are you suggesting? Hyun-woo smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of a predator. I'm suggesting that the Valerians are about to learn something about humans. We don't forgive, we don't forget, and we don't give up. He pressed another button. A map of Valerian space appeared on the screen. Dozens of star systems, hundreds of planets. They took our people, Hyun-woo said. They killed our families. They destroyed our worlds. And they did it all while pretending to be our friends. The room was completely quiet now. Everyone stared at the map. So here's what we're going to do, Hyun-woo continued. We're going to take it all back. Every planet, every station, every ship. We're going to free every slave they've taken. We're going to rescue every species they've conquered. Admiral Seo-jin Kim, his old friend, spoke up. Hyun-woo, their fleet is huge. They control half the galaxy. They control half the galaxy because no one has ever united against them, Hyun-woo replied. But that's about to change, because we're not just going to fight them. We're going to show every species they've oppressed that the Valerians can be beaten. He looked around the room at every face. They thought they were harvesting us. They thought they were making us weak. Instead, they trained us to be the best warriors in the galaxy. They gave us 5 years of the most brutal combat experience possible. They taught us to never trust anyone completely. They showed us how to build weapons that can destroy fleets. Hyun-woo walked to the window again. They wanted to farm us, but farmers should remember one thing about crops. He turned back to face the room. Sometimes the crops grow bigger than expected. Sometimes they break out of their fields, and sometimes they decide to take over the farm. The meeting lasted 6 more hours. Plans were made. Orders were given. Messages were sent to every human colony, every human ship, every human outpost in the galaxy. The Valerians had spent 1,000 years believing they were the smartest species alive. They were about to learn that intelligence isn't about knowing everything. It's about learning from your mistakes. And humanity had just learned the biggest lesson of all. Lieutenant Colonel Min-ho Choi stepped off the transport ship onto the surface of Kepler 442b. The planet had once been home to 3 million humans. Now it looked empty and broken. Twisted metal and burned buildings stretched as far as he could. See? This had been one of humanity's most important military bases before the Valerians declared it too damaged to save. But Min-ho wasn't here to mourn. He was here because satellite scans had shown something strange. Power signatures coming from underground. The Valerians said this place was dead, but something was very much alive down there. Spread out, he told his team. Look for anything that doesn't belong. Dr. So-Young-han walked beside him, carrying scanners and data pads. She was the best scientist Earth had for understanding alien technology. If there were secrets here, she would find them. Captain Dong-wook Nam led a group of engineers toward what used to be the main base. Even from a distance, Min-ho could see that the damage wasn't as bad as reports claimed. Some buildings were destroyed, yes, but others just looked empty. Colonel, came a voice over his radio. It was Sergeant Yoon-ji Kim, one of his best soldiers. You need to see this. Min-ho jogged toward her voice. He found her standing next to what looked like a pile of rubble, but when he looked closer, he saw it wasn't random debris. Someone had carefully arranged the broken concrete and twisted metal to hide something underneath. Help me move this, Yoon-ji said. Together, they lifted away chunks of fake rubble. Underneath was a metal hatch, still clean and new. Min-ho pulled. It opened. Cool air rushed out, carrying the smell of electronics and oil. Below was a tunnel lit by emergency lights. Well, Minho said, the Valerians missed something. The tunnel led down into darkness. Minho's team followed single file, weapons, ready. After 5 minutes of walking, they reached a massive door. It was made of the same metal as human warships, thick enough to stop almost any weapon. The door was locked, but Captain Dong Wook had brought the right tools. It took 20 minutes to get through the security system. When the door finally opened, everyone stopped and stared. Behind the door was a factory. Not a small workshop, but an enormous underground facility that stretched further than their lights could reach. Assembly lines ran in perfect rows. Robotic arms hung from the ceiling like sleeping giants. And everywhere, Minho could see the shapes of spaceships. Not just any spaceships. These were human designs, but better than anything he had ever seen. Sleek hulls that seemed to absorb light, weapons that looked like they could crack planets, engine systems that hummed with barely contained power. My God, Dr. So-Young whispered. How long has this been running? Dong Wook was already at a control panel, reading the data. According to this, the factory started production 6 years ago, right at the beginning of the war. He looked up. It's been building ships this whole time. Minho walked between the assembly lines. The ships were beautiful and terrible at the same time. Human engineering mixed with technology he didn't recognize. So-Young, what am I looking at? She was scanning one of the ships with her equipment. These aren't purely human designs. Look at this hull material. It's some kind of biometal. And these weapons, they're using Korath energy systems, but modified. Modified how? Made more efficient, more powerful. She looked up from her scanner. Colonel, whoever built these ships was taking the best parts of alien technology and making them better. Yunji had found another control panel. Sir, there are records here. It looks like... Wait. She frowned at the screen. These were built by Dr. Hae-Jin Park. Minho knew that name. Dr. Park had been one of humanity's top weapons designers during the war. He had died in a Korath attack 3 years ago. Or at least, that's what everyone believed. Keep reading, Minho said. He didn't die, sir. According to this, he faked his death and came here. He's been working with a team of engineers and scientists who all supposedly died during the war. Dong Wook looked up from his panel. There are more facilities like this, 7 of them, spread across human space, all hidden, all building ships. A new voice came from behind them. Actually, there are 12 facilities. Everyone spun around, weapons raised. An older man stepped out of the shadows. He was thin and tired-looking, but his eyes were sharp. Minho recognized him from old photographs. Dr. Hae-Jin Park, I presume? Minho said, not lowering his weapon. Yes. And you're Lieutenant Colonel Minho Choi, if my security cameras got your rank right. Dr. Park raised his hands to show he wasn't armed. Don't worry. I'm not your enemy. You faked your death. I had to. We all did. Dr. Park gestured toward the ships. We knew something was wrong during the war. The Valerians always seemed to know too much about our plans. Our weapons kept failing at convenient times for the enemy. So some of us decided to prepare for the worst. So-Young lowered her scanner. You've been building a secret fleet for 5 years? Not just ships, weapons, technology, training facilities. Dr. Park walked to one of the completed vessels. We suspected the Valerians were playing both sides. We just didn't know how deep it went. Minho finally lowered his weapon. How many ships do you have? Completed? About 300 across all facilities. In production? Another 500? Dr. Park smiled. We've been busy. Dong Wook whistled. That's more firepower than half the human fleet. That's the idea. But it's not just about numbers. Dr. Park activated a hologram projector. Images appeared in the air, showing ship designs and weapon specifications. These ships are built with everything we learned during the war. They're faster than Valerian ships, tougher than Korath ships, and they have weapons that neither side has ever seen. The hologram showed a ship firing some kind of energy beam. Where the beam hit, a Valerian ship simply disappeared. What was that? Minho asked. We call it a disruption cannon. It breaks apart the molecular bonds in whatever it hits. Very effective against Valerian shielding. Dr. Park changed the hologram. And this is a bioweapon that only affects Valerian physiology, harmless to humans and most other species. So Young stepped closer to examine the data. You've been developing species-specific weapons? Among other things, we've also been training soldiers in combat techniques designed specifically for fighting. Valerians. Master Sergeant Yoon Seo-jung has been running those programs. As if summoned by her name, a woman stepped out from behind one of the ships. She was dressed in military gear that Min-ho didn't recognize. Her movements were smooth and confident. "Colonel," she said with a salute, "I've been training volunteers from the refugee camps, people who lost everything in the war and want revenge." "How? Many volunteers?" Min-ho asked. 50,000 so far. All of them know the truth about the Valerians now. All of them are ready to fight." Yoonji was still reading from the computer. "Sir, there's more. They've been gathering intelligence on Valerian and Karath worlds. Military bases, resource centers, population centers, everything." Intelligence Officer Seung-ho Park appeared from another section of the facility. Min-ho was starting to wonder how many supposedly dead people were hiding down here. "We never stopped spying on both sides," Seung-ho said. "Even after the war ended, we kept watching. We have detailed maps of Valerian space. We know where they keep their fleets, where they store their resources, where they house their slaves." Dr. Park activated another hologram. This one showed a three-dimensional map of local space. Red dots marked Valerian worlds, blue dots marked human colonies, but there were also yellow dots scattered throughout Valerian territory. "What are the yellow dots?" Min-ho asked. "Prison worlds, labor camps, places where they keep the people they've taken from conquered species." Dr. Park's voice became hard, "Including about 2 million humans they took from our relief camps." The room went quiet. Min-ho felt anger burning in his chest. He had wondered what happened to all the people who went to Valerian relief camps after the war. Now he knew. "We have the locations of every major Valerian installation," Seung-ho continued. "We know their patrol routes, their communication codes, their military doctrine. We've been preparing for this war for 5 years." Dong-wook was studying the ship designs. "These vessels, they're not just warships. Some of them are designed for rescue operations." "Exactly," Dr. Park said. "When the war starts, we'll need to move fast to free the prisoners before the Valerians can kill them. These ships can land on planets, extract large numbers of people, and escape before enemy reinforcements arrive." Min-ho looked around the facility again. Hundreds of ships, thousands of weapons, decades of intelligence data, all hidden right under the Valerians' noses. "Why show us this now?" he asked. "Because," Dr. Park said, "we got Admiral Kim's message yesterday, the one calling for volunteers for a secret mission. We think it's time to stop hiding." Yoon Seo stepped forward. "Colonel, my people have been waiting for this. They've been training for revenge for 5 years. They're ready." Min-ho activated his radio. "Admiral Kim, this is Colonel Choi. You need to get down here and bring everyone. We just found out the war never really ended." "What do you mean?" came Kim's voice. Min-ho looked at the ships, the weapons, the determined faces around him. "I mean, some humans never stopped fighting. They just got smarter about it." 2 hours later, Admiral Kim stood in the middle of the facility with his mouth open. Ambassador Ye-jin Lim stared out the window of her ship as it approached the Korath homeworld. The planet looked red and angry, just like its people. Massive cities covered the surface, connected by bridges that stretched across deep canyons. She could see Korath warships patrolling the space around their world, ready to destroy any threat. 3 months ago, she would never have imagined coming here. The Korath had been humanity's enemy for 5 bloody years. They had killed millions of humans. Humans had killed millions of them. The hatred between the two species seemed impossible to overcome. But now everything was different. Now they knew the truth about the Valerians. "Ambassador," came a voice from behind her. General Woo Jin Kang stood in the doorway of the observation deck. He looked uncomfortable in his dress uniform. "We're receiving a transmission from the Korath." Ye Jin followed him to the bridge. Captain Subin Lee was at the communications station, speaking in the harsh, clicking language of the Korath. She had spent 2 years learning it, preparing for this moment. "What are they saying?" Ye Jin asked. "They're demanding to know why we're here," Subin replied. They say they'll destroy us if we don't leave immediately. Tell them we have information about the Valerians, information they need to hear. Subin translated. There was a long pause. Then angry clicking sounds came through the speakers. They say the Valerians are their allies. They say we're trying to trick them like we did during the war. General Wu Jin stepped forward. Tell them we have proof that the Valerians betrayed both our species. Tell them we know about Project Culling. When Subin translated those words, the Korath voices on the radio went silent. After almost a minute, a new voice spoke. This one was deeper, more controlled. They're transferring us to War Master Kethvar, Subin said. He wants to speak directly. To you, Ambassador. Yejin took the radio. She spoke slowly in Korath, using the formal phrases she had memorized. Honored War Master, I am Ambassador Yejin Lim of Earth. I come bearing truth that will anger you, but truth you must hear. The War Master's reply was sharp. Speak, human, but know that lies will mean death. The war between our peoples was not natural. It was planned. The Valerians made us fight each other so they could weaken both our species and take control. Long silence. Then, you have proof of this claim? Yes. We have intercepted Valerian communications. We have documents showing how they supplied weapons to both sides. We have evidence of their Project Culling. Another pause. We will allow one ship to approach our station. You will present your evidence. If you lie, you die. If you speak truth, we will see. The next few hours passed slowly. Yejin's ship docked with a massive Korath battle station orbiting their homeworld. Korath warriors escorted her and her small team through corridors that seemed designed to intimidate enemies. Everything was built for beings larger and stronger than humans. They were brought to a conference room where War Master Kethvar waited. He was huge, even for a Korath. His scales were deep red with scars from old battles. His eyes held the intelligence of a skilled warrior and the suspicion of someone who had been betrayed before. Sit, he commanded in heavily accented human language. Show proof. Dr. Ji-Won Yu, the xenopsychologist Yejin had brought along, activated a holographic projector. Valerian documents appeared in the air, translated into Korath script. Kethvar read in silence. His expression didn't change, but Yejin noticed his claws extending and retracting as he read. That was a sign of barely controlled rage. These documents, he said finally. How did you obtain them? Our intelligence officers intercepted Valerian communications, General Wu Jin replied. We have been monitoring them since the war ended. Kethvar looked at more documents. Supply lists showing weapons delivered to both humans and Korath. Battle plans designed to make the war last longer. Reports describing both species as subjects in an experiment. This mentions Korath taken to work camps, Kethvar said, his voice getting lower. The Valerians told us these were voluntary colonists. Dr. Ji-Won pulled up another hologram. We have reconnaissance images of the camps. Your people are being used as forced labor in Valerian mines and factories. The War Master stood up suddenly. His chair crashed to the floor. How many? At least 3 million Korath. Taken from refugee camps after the war, just like they took our people. Kethvar walked to the window. Outside, Korath ships patrolled peacefully, unaware that their allies were actually their enslavers. You say the Valerians planned our war? He said without turning around. That they wanted both our peoples to suffer. Yes, Yejin replied. They have done this to other species for 1,000 years. They create conflicts, then profit from the aftermath. Why bring this to us? Why not simply attack the Valerians yourselves? General Wu Jin stepped forward. Because attacking them alone would be foolish. They have a vast empire, hundreds of worlds, thousands of ships, but together, humans and Korath might have a chance. Kethvar turned around. You ask us to trust the species we fought for 5 years. You ask us to become allies with our enemies. We ask you to recognize who your real enemies are, Yejin said. The Valerians manipulated both our species into hating each other. They fed on our conflict. They grew strong, while we grew weak. The War Master walked back to the table. He picked up his chair and sat down heavily. Among my people, there is no greater dishonor than being used as a tool by cowards. If what you say is true, the Valerians have committed the ultimate offense against Korath honor. Dr. Ji-won activated another hologram. War Master, may I show you something? This is a psychological profile of Valerian leadership. They see other species as resources to be managed, not as beings with their own rights and dignity. The hologram showed intercepted recordings of Valerian leaders discussing humans and Korath like livestock. The casual contempt in their voices was clear even through translation. Kethvar's claws extended fully. They speak of us like animals. Yes, Yejin said. To them, we are nothing more than useful tools. They never intended to honor any agreements with either of our species. Colonel Haiyan Wu Xin, who had been silent until now, spoke up. War Master, during the war, did you ever notice that Valerian supplies always seem to arrive at exactly the right time? Just when your forces needed them most? Kethvar nodded slowly. Yes. We thought they were being generous allies. They were managing the conflict, making sure neither side won too quickly, making sure the war lasted as long as possible to cause maximum damage to both our peoples. The room was quiet for several minutes. Kethvar studied the documents, occasionally asking questions. His advisors whispered among themselves in their clicking language. Finally, the War Master spoke. I will need to consult with the High Council. This decision cannot be made by one warrior alone. We understand, Yejin said. But War Master, time is important. The longer we wait, the more of our people suffer in Valerian camps. Kethvar stood up. You will wait in the guest quarters. I will have an answer within 1 day. As they were escorted away, Dr. Ji-won whispered to Yejin, Do you think he believes us? He wants to believe us, Yejin replied. The question is whether his people will accept an alliance with humans. The next 18 hours felt like forever. Yejin and her team stayed in the Korath guest quarters, which were uncomfortably hot and humid. They could hear arguing voices echoing through the station's corridors. The debate was clearly intense. Finally, Kethvar summoned them back to the conference room. This time, he wasn't alone. 5 other Korath leaders sat around the table, all of them looking grim. The High Council has reached a decision, Kethvar announced. We have examined your evidence carefully. We have also conducted our own investigation into Valerian activities. He activated a hologram showing Korath intelligence data. Our spies have confirmed much of what you told us. The Valerians have indeed been deceiving us. They have been taking our people for forced labor. They have been weakening our military through cooperative agreements that benefit only them. General Wu Jin leaned forward. What is your decision? We accept your proposal for alliance, Kethvar said. But with conditions. What conditions? Yejin asked. First, this alliance is temporary. It exists only until the Valerians are defeated and our people are freed. Second, we will plan all military operations together. Neither species will act without consulting the other. Third, after the war, we will establish formal treaties to prevent future conflicts between humans and Korath. Yejin felt relief wash over her. Those terms are acceptable. One of the other Korath leaders spoke up. There is one more thing. We demand joint raids on the prison camps. Korath warriors will help free human prisoners, and human soldiers will help free Korath prisoners. Agreed, General Wu Jin said immediately. Kethvar stood up and extended his clawed hand toward Yejin. Then we are allies, Ambassador. May the Valerians learn to regret the day they decided to manipulate the Korath and humanity. Yejin shook his hand, careful of the claws. May they learn that some species become stronger when they're tested. Later that day, Captain Subin Lee and Korath Commander Vorthak worked together to plan their first joint operation. The target was a small, Valerian listening post that monitored communications between human and Korath worlds. Fleet Admiral Jae-sung Park stood on the bridge of the flagship Liberation, watching as the largest fleet in human history prepared for battle. Around him, 300 human ships floated in formation alongside 200 Korath vessels. It was a sight that would have been impossible 6 months ago. All ships report ready, Admiral, Commander Haya Young Kwan announced from her position at the tactical station. Jae-sung nodded. Signal the fleet. Operation Reckoning begins now. The target was Voss Prime, a Valerian industrial world that processed stolen resources from dozens of conquered species. Intelligence reports showed it was lightly defended, making it perfect for their first major strike. More importantly, it housed nearly 500,000 slaves taken from various worlds. "Entering hyperspace in 30 seconds, called the navigation officer. Jae-sung activated the fleet communication system. "All ships, this is Admiral Park. Today we begin the liberation of our people and our galaxy. The Valerians have grown fat and lazy from 1,000 years of easy victories. They have never faced united enemies. They have never fought species that learned from betrayal." He paused, looking out at the stars. "Today, they learn that their victims have become their hunters. Execute jump." Space twisted around them as 500 warships vanished into hyperspace. 3 hours later, they emerged in the Voss system. Alarms immediately began blaring as Valerian sensors detected the massive fleet. The planet's orbital stations scrambled to raise shields and power. "Weapons. Enemy response?" Jae-sung asked. 43 Valerian ships moving to intercept," Ha-young reported. "They're sending distress calls to neighboring systems." "Jam all communications. I don't want reinforcements arriving early." "Captain Yeon-ho," Young's voice came over the radio from his assault transport. "Admiral, ground forces are ready for deployment. We have 12,000 human marines and 8,000 Korath warriors standing by." "Wait for the orbital defenses to fall," Jae-sung replied. "Commander Kwan, begin the attack." The space battle was unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. Human ships used their speed and advanced weapons to strike from long range, while Korath vessels charged in close for devastating attacks. The Valerians had trained to fight against either humans or Korath separately, but never both at once. Dr. In-seok monitored the battle from his specialized ship designed for liberating prison facilities. His job was to identify and protect the slave compounds during the fighting. "I'm reading massive life signs in the southern continent," he reported. "Looks like 3 major facilities holding different species." "Any humans?" Jae-sung asked. "Yes, sir, and Korath, and at least 6 other species I don't recognize." The orbital battle ended quickly. Valerian ships were destroyed or forced to retreat. The planet's defenses couldn't handle the combined assault of human precision and Korath brutality. "All orbital stations neutralized," Ha-young reported. "The planet is defenseless." Jae-sung opened communications to the surface. "This is Admiral Jae-sung Park of the Human Korath Liberation Fleet. We are here to free the prisoners you hold illegally. Surrender now, and you will be treated according to galactic law. Resist, and we will take the planet by force." The response came from Governor Veltar, the Valerian administrator of Voss Prime. His voice was filled with arrogance despite his situation. "You cannot be here. Humans and Korath are enemies. This is some kind of trick." "The only trick," Jae-sung replied, "was the one you played on us for 5 years. Now we're playing a different game." The landing began immediately. Yeon-ho led the assault on the main industrial complex, while Korath Warmaster Kethvar's forces targeted the military bases. The combination of human tactics and Korath strength overwhelmed the Valerian defenders, but the real work was happening at the prison camps. Dr. In-seok's teams moved carefully through the facilities, identifying prisoners and providing medical care. What they found was worse than anyone had imagined. "Admiral," In-seok's voice was shaking as he reported from the first camp. "These people, they've been used for medical experiments. The Valerians have been testing biological weapons on them." Jae-sung felt sick. "How many survivors?" "About 50,000 in this facility alone. Humans, Korath, and 4 other species. They're weak, but alive." Similar reports came from the other camps. Hundreds of thousands of beings from across the galaxy, all taken by the Valerians and used as slaves or test subjects. Many spoke of families torn apart, of being told they were going to relocation centers for their own safety. Major Soo-jin Han led a special forces team that captured the main administrative building. Inside, they found the real prize: complete records of Valerian operations throughout the galaxy. "Admiral, you need to see this," Soo-jin transmitted. "We've got files on Project Culling going back 800 years, dozens of species, hundreds of manipulated wars." The files were staggering. The Valerians had destroyed entire civilizations through manufactured conflicts. They had a detailed plan for every species in the galaxy, deciding which ones were useful enough to keep as slaves, and which ones should be eliminated entirely. "There's more," Sujin continued. "They have detailed invasion plans for Earth and the Korath homeworld. They were planning to declare us threats to galactic peace and justify direct conquest." Jae-sung felt his anger grow cold and focused. The Valerians hadn't just betrayed humanity and the Korath. They had been planning to destroy both species entirely once they were no longer useful. "Download everything," he ordered. "We're going to show the galaxy exactly what the Valerians really are." The battle for Voss Prime lasted 6 hours. When it ended, the planet was under human Korath control, and nearly 500,000 slaves were free. But more importantly, the Liberation Forces had captured intact Valerian technology and intelligence. Commander Hyun-woo Shin, leading the technical recovery teams, made discoveries that changed everything. "Admiral, their communication arrays are still active. We can access their entire network." Meaning, we can see every Valerian military base, every prison world, every fleet movement in real time. And more importantly, we can send messages to every oppressed species in their territory. Jae-sung smiled grimly. "Do it. Tell them what we found here. Tell them the truth about the Valerians, and tell them that liberation is possible." Over the next few days, the messages went out across Valerian space. The evidence from Voss Prime was broadcast to hundreds of worlds. Species that had lived under Valerian control for generations learned that their protectors were actually their oppressors. The response was immediate. Rebellion broke out on dozens of worlds. Species that had been enemies suddenly realized they had been manipulated into fighting each other. Prison camps erupted in revolt as guards were overwhelmed by coordinated uprisings. Dr. In-seok worked tirelessly to organize the freed prisoners. Many were too weak to fight, but they provided valuable intelligence about other Valerian facilities. Others, especially the younger and stronger ones, volunteered to join the Liberation Fleet. "We have volunteers from 14 different species," he reported to Jae-sung. "They all want to help free their people." Among the volunteers was a group that surprised everyone, young Valerians who had been working as guards and administrators. They had believed they were serving a noble cause, protecting weaker species. Learning the truth about Project Culling had shattered their worldview. "We want to help," said Sub-Commander Kel-Tai, speaking for the Valerian volunteers. "Our people have committed terrible crimes. We must work to repair the damage." Yan-ho was skeptical. "How do we know this isn't a trick?" "Because," Kel-Tai replied, "we have families on Valerian worlds. If we're lying, they will be executed as traitors. We are risking everything by helping you." The liberation of Voss Prime had taken one day. The intelligence gathered there would fuel a war that would reshape the galaxy. "Admiral," Haya-young said as she compiled the data from captured files, "we now have detailed information on 47 major Valerian installations. Prison worlds, military bases, industrial centers. We know where they keep their fleets and how they move supplies." Jae-sung studied the star map showing Valerian territory. Red markers indicated high-priority targets. Yellow markers showed known prison facilities. Blue markers represented potential allies. "How long before they organize a proper response?" he asked. "Their nearest major fleet is 12 days away," Cathvar reported from his command ship. "But smaller forces will reach us sooner. Then we move fast. Hit multiple targets before they can coordinate their defenses." Jae-sung turned to his communications officer. "Send messages to all the rebellion leaders we've contacted. Tell them we're coming. Tell them to be ready." "What about Voss Prime?" Yan-ho asked. "Do we leave a garrison?" "No. We give the planet back to its people." Jae-sung looked at the tactical display showing freed prisoners organizing themselves into local governments. The Valerians controlled through fear and deception. We liberate through trust and truth. As the human Korath fleet prepared to leave Voss Prime, Jae-sung received a message that made his day. It was from Admiral Hyun-woo Kim, back on Earth. "Jae-sung, your victory has inspired the entire galaxy. We're receiving communication requests from 43 different species. They all want to join the liberation effort." The Admiral smiled as he looked out at the stars. President Admiral Ki-Young Lee stood before the largest gathering in galactic history. Representatives from 47 different species filled the massive assembly hall on New Geneva Station. Some were humanoid, others looked like living crystals or energy beings. All had one thing in common. They had suffered under Valerian rule. 6 months ago, Ki-Young began, humanity learned that we had been deceived. We discovered that our 5-year war with the Korath was planned by the Valerians to weaken both our species. The hall was completely silent. Beings who had been enemies for generations sat side by side, united by shared betrayal. Today we gathered to plan the final assault on Valerian Prime, the heart of an empire built on lies and suffering, the source of 1,000 years of galactic oppression. General Myung-Soo Nam activated a holographic display showing the Valerian homeworld. It was heavily defended, surrounded by massive space stations, and protected by the most powerful fleet in the galaxy. The Valerians have pulled back their forces from across the galaxy to defend their homeworld, Myung-Soo explained. They know that if Valerian Prime falls, their empire falls with it. Korath War Master Kethvar stood up. His scarred scales showed the marks of dozens of battles fought in the Liberation Campaign. How many ships do they have? Intelligence estimates 2,000 vessels, Admiral Seo-Jin Kim replied from her position at the tactical display. Everything from small patrol boats to massive dreadnoughts. A crystal being named Sheltar from the Thessarian coalition spoke in a voice like wind chimes. Our combined fleets number 3,000 ships. We have numerical advantage. Numbers aren't everything, warned Commander Volthok of the Poltar Resistance. His people looked like living shadows, and they had been fighting the Valerians longer than anyone. Valerian Prime has planetary shields that can withstand direct bombardment from entire fleets. Ki-Young nodded. Which is why we're not planning a direct assault. Captain Ji-Ho Yoon has developed a different strategy. Ji-Ho stepped forward. She had been humanity's lead diplomat throughout the Liberation Campaign, and she understood the political situation better than anyone. The Valerian Empire isn't really an empire, she explained. It's a collection of conquered species held together by fear and propaganda. Most Valerians believe they're protecting weaker species from chaos and war. She activated another hologram, showing Valerian population centers. There are 12 billion Valerians on their homeworld. Most of them have never seen the evidence of what their government has done. They think Project Culling is a conspiracy theory. Representative Morgeth of the Cathara spoke up. His people had been enslaved by the Valerians for 300 years. You propose to educate them instead of destroying them? We propose to give them a choice, Ki-Young replied. The same choice we wish we had been given during our war with the Korath. Dr. Ai-Cha Yoon, humanities expert on mass communications, stepped forward. We've been monitoring Valerian media networks for months. Their people are already starting to ask questions. Reports of the Liberation Campaign have leaked despite government censorship. The plan was ambitious and risky. Instead of attacking Valerian Prime directly, the coalition would surround the system and broadcast the truth to the entire population. Evidence of Project Culling, recordings of liberated prisoners, testimony from Valerian defectors who had joined the liberation movement. If we can turn the Valerian people against their own government, Ji-Ho explained, the war ends without destroying their civilization. And if they refuse to believe the evidence, asked War Master Kethvar Ki-Young's expression hardened, then we do what we must to free the prisoners and stop the oppression. But we try peace first. The final planning session lasted 18 hours. Fleet movements were coordinated, communication protocols established, evacuation plans prepared. Every species brought something unique to the effort. The Thessarians provided advanced scanning technology. The Poltar contributed stealth capabilities. The Korath offered their unmatched warriors. Humanity brought tactical innovation and diplomatic skill. Admiral Hyun-Woo Kim, now an old man but still sharp, reviewed the final plans. This is the largest military operation in galactic history, he said. But more than that, it's the first time in 1,000 years that free species have worked together as equals. 3 weeks later, the coalition fleet jumped into the Valerian home system. 3,000 ships of every size and design appeared around Valerian Prime like a steel constellation. The planet's defenses immediately activated, but no shots were fired. Instead, Kai Young broadcast a message to the entire planet. People of Valerian Prime, I am President Admiral Ki Young Lee of the Galactic Liberation Coalition. We are not here to conquer you. We are here to show you the truth about your government. The response was immediate. Valerian High Command activated their propaganda networks, claiming the coalition was an invasion force bent on destroying Valerian civilization. But the coalition was ready. Dr. Cha had prepared the most comprehensive media campaign in galactic history. Every communication channel was flooded with evidence, video recordings from liberated camps, testimony from former prisoners, documents showing the real purpose of Project Culling. Most damaging of all were the recordings of Valerian leaders discussing other species like livestock. The casual contempt in their voices shocked Valerian civilians who had believed their government was noble and protective. This is High Counselor Velthara speaking, came a transmission from the planet's surface. These broadcasts are enemy propaganda designed to turn us against our own government. But it was too late. The evidence was too overwhelming, too detailed, too consistent across dozens of sources. Riots began in Valerian cities as people demanded answers from their leaders. Captain Jiho monitored the situation from her command ship. We're seeing massive protests in the capital city. Valerian security forces are struggling to maintain order. Any word from the moderate factions? Ki Young asked. Yes, ma'am. Council member Korvash is requesting a private communication channel. He represents the political opposition. The conversation with Korvash changed everything. He was a younger Valerian leader who had suspected something was wrong with his government's policies, but had never seen proof before. What you've shown us. It's horrifying, he said during the private meeting. Most of our people had no idea. We were told the camps were voluntary work programs. We were told other species requested our protection. What will your people do now that they know the truth? Ki Young asked. Many will demand justice. Others will deny the evidence. But I believe most will want to make amends. Korvash paused. What are your terms for peace? The negotiations took 3 days. Representatives from all 47 coalition species participated, ensuring that every voice was heard. The terms were harsh, but fair. All prisoners would be immediately released and returned to their home worlds. Valerian military forces would be reduced and placed under coalition oversight. Reparations would be paid to all affected species. Most importantly, the Valerians would join the new Galactic Liberation Council as junior members, working to undo the damage they had caused. High Counselor Velthara and the hardline faction refused the terms. We will never surrender to inferior species, she declared. Valerian Prime will fight to the last defender. But she was overruled by her own people. Mass demonstrations filled Valerian cities as millions demanded that their government accept the coalition's terms. The truth about Project Culling had shattered their worldview, but it had also offered them a chance at redemption. The formal surrender ceremony took place 1 week later. Admiral Seo-Jin Kim accepted the surrender of the EI Valerian fleet, but she did something unexpected. Instead of taking the ships as prizes of war, she offered them back to the Valerians for use in humanitarian missions. We're not here to replace one empire with another, she explained. We're here to create something new, a galaxy where all species work together as equals. The liberation of the prison camps on Valerian Prime took 2 months. Nearly 10 million beings were freed, including humans and Korath, who had been missing for years. The emotional reunions were broadcast across the galaxy, showing species that had been enemies embracing as brothers and sisters. Dr. Inseok O led the effort to rehabilitate former prisoners and help them return home. But many chose to stay and help with the reconstruction efforts. They had formed bonds during their captivity that transcended species boundaries. It's remarkable, he reported to Ki Young. Former prisoners are working alongside their former guards to build the new government. Shared suffering has created trust that would have taken generations to develop otherwise. The establishment of the Galactic Liberation Council marked the beginning of a new era. The council had no emperor, no supreme leader. Instead, it was governed by representatives from all member species, making decisions through consensus and cooperation. 5 years later, Admiral Hyun-woo Kim walked through the observation deck of New Geneva Station. Outside the windows, ships from dozens of species moved peacefully through space. Human children played alongside young Korath, Thessarians, Poltar, and even young Valerians. "It's not perfect," he told his granddaughter as she watched the ships. "Different species still have disagreements."